Everything you think is real isn't. And once you see this, nothing will ever feel the same. That's why life can feel uneasy, like something subtle is off beneath the surface. Routines, memories, even your sense of self feel solid, but they're only shadows of a larger, hidden reality. Most people never notice this, trapped in the illusion of continuity, cause and effect, and permanence. Mystics, philosophers, and consciousness researchers all point to the same hidden truth. What you assume is stable is fluid. What you cling to as truth is conditional. And what you fear losing is already an illusion. By the end of this video, you won't just see differently. You'll inhabit a reality you can never unsee. Your perception, your sense of identity, even the world itself, will shift in ways that feel irreversible. And that is the power of understanding the concept that destroys everything you thought was real. To truly grasp the concept that can end your reality, you must first confront the very foundation upon which that reality is built. At the core of human perception lies two pillars: time and self. We move through the world assuming that both are stable, that both are real in the way we imagine them to be. We wake in the morning, remember the past, anticipate the future, and carry an identity we call ours. Yet when you look closely, when you remove the comforting labels and habitual frameworks, both begin to reveal themselves as illusions, fragile constructs that can collapse with a single insight. Time, as we know it, is far less absolute than we have been conditioned to believe. Clocks tick, calendars turn, and we measure life in hours, days, and years, as though existence itself obeys the steady rhythm of a machine. But beneath the apparent flow, there is no objective timeline. Memory does not operate as a faithful recording. It edits, rearranges, and even fabricates events to fit the narrative we prefer to inhabit. Anticipation of the future is similarly deceptive, for the mind imagines outcomes based on probabilities, habits, and fear, not on any absolute certainty. Life, when stripped of these constructs, is more like a river with hidden currents. Its surface may seem linear, but beneath it moves in unpredictable, infinite patterns. And then there is the notion of self, which is perhaps the most seductive and the most confining illusion of all. We identify with a collection of memories, traits, roles, and labels, convincing ourselves that these define who we are. I am this, we say. I am that. As if such statements could ever encapsulate the vast, unbounded presence that observes these thoughts. Yet the self is not a fixed entity. It is fluid, constantly shaped by genetics, environment, relationships, and even fleeting sensations that enter our consciousness unnoticed. The I that you consider permanent is more like a mask worn by an actor whose performance changes with every scene. Consider the simple act of remembering. You recall a moment from your childhood and feel certain it occurred exactly as you remember. But research shows that memory is reconstructive. Each act of remembering alters the memory itself. What you think of as a stable self-image, this idea that you are consistent across time, is already a series of approximations, a story you tell yourself to create the illusion of continuity. Now imagine realizing that your very sense of identity is woven from threads that are constantly rewoven by unseen hands. The solidity you rely upon begins to crumble. When these illusions start to dissolve, an unfamiliar sensation arises. It is at once disorienting and liberating. Without the constraints of linear time and fixed identity, the mind begins to perceive patterns it never noticed before. You begin to notice how events do not simply happen to you, but unfold around you in response to subtle currents, movements of thought, intention, and perception that operate outside ordinary awareness. The walls between self and world start to feel thinner. The rhythm of existence, once thought external and uncontrollable, begins to reveal itself as participatory. This is where many people falter. Most are deeply invested in the continuity of their personal narrative, in the familiar cadence of cause and effect. To glimpse reality as fluid, to see time as a malleable field and self as an evolving construct, can feel like standing on the edge of an abyss. Yet it is also the threshold of awakening, the point at which a deeper understanding of existence becomes possible. You sense that life is not a sequence of isolated events, but a network of interwoven currents, where perception, choice, and reality respond to one another in ways your conscious mind cannot fully trace. And so this chapter of awareness unfolds gradually. It is not a revelation that strikes like lightning, but a slow, insistent erosion of certainty. You notice that some moments stretch and contract, that emotions color perception of time, that your reactions to people and situations are not fixed, but shaped by shifting internal landscapes. You begin to recognize that the story of your life is less an objective truth than a reflection of your consciousness, shaped by unseen forces and subtle, hidden laws. This is why understanding time and self is not merely philosophical, it is transformative. By perceiving them as fluid, by witnessing their mutability, you prepare your mind for the next insight. The concept so profound, it cannot be ignored. The boundaries you relied upon to feel secure are already softening. The rules you assumed governed reality are more suggestions than absolutes. And in this space where time flows like water and self feels like a temporary echo, you start to sense the infinite potential that has always existed behind the veil of ordinary perception. It is here, in this liminal space between illusion and truth, that the journey deepens. You can feel it subtly. The world is not a static stage upon which you play a fixed role. You are not merely moving through reality. You are entwined with it, participating in its unfolding, shaping it as it shapes you. This understanding prepares the mind for the revelation to come, the one concept that will end the reality you thought was fixed, that will illuminate the hidden machinery of existence, and that will change your perception irreversibly. Imagine for a moment that the reality you trust, the one built from years of habit, memory, and expectation, is not a fixed stage but a dynamic system. An intricate mechanism whose rules are hidden and invisible, yet utterly precise. It does not operate according to your conscious understanding. It responds to patterns you sense but cannot fully trace, to movements of thought and intention that ripple silently through the fabric of existence. You have always believed that life happens to you, that events are external, but consequences are inevitable. What if, instead, the world is quietly responding to the resonance of your awareness? This is not a notion meant for casual reflection. It is a subtle, almost imperceptible revelation that stretches the mind, compelling it to question the solidity of everything you hold true. Consider the moments in life that feel uncanny, coincidences so improbable they seem orchestrated, encounters that shift the direction of your path, opportunities that appear and vanish as if the universe is listening to your unspoken inclinations. You dismiss these events as chance, luck, or timing, but what if they are not random at all? What if there exists an underlying mechanism, imperceptible yet always present, that aligns reality in accordance with subtle currents of thought, attention, and desire? Now, try to imagine it. Reality as a living, responsive entity, one that is not separate from you, but entwined with your very perception. Every glance, every focus, every unspoken expectation is a note in a vast symphony of unfolding events. The mind struggles to grasp this because it wants linearity, wants to assign cause and effect, wants to contain life within the predictable walls of time. Yet here, the walls are already dissolving. The events you perceive as separate are not isolated. They are interwoven threads in a web whose full pattern cannot be observed from the surface alone. Consider your daily interactions. The person who smiles unexpectedly, the stranger whose presence interrupts your thoughts, the sudden insight that illuminates a previously invisible solution. These are not mere fragments of randomness. They are the subtle echoes of a larger alignment. You have always assumed that influence flows in one direction, from the world onto you, but in truth, it is a dialogue. Consciousness is not passive. It moves, interacts, and elicits response, often without your awareness. This is the hidden machinery of reality. The tension arises because this idea challenges the very foundation of certainty. We are conditioned to seek evidence, to measure outcomes, to assert control. Yet here is a concept that defies traditional validation. It cannot be reduced to formulas, cannot be fully described, and cannot be ignored once glimpsed. The mind resists it instinctively, oscillating between awe, skepticism, and subtle fear. For once you begin to sense this hidden mechanism, you realize that reality is far less predictable than you believed, and far more intimate than you ever imagined. To deepen this awareness, observe the moments when life seems unusually coincidental. The thought that appears before an unexpected message arrives, the idea that coincides with a sudden insight, the timing of events that seems orchestrated with uncanny precision. These glimpses are not anomalies, they are traces of a deeper order, a subtle feedback loop between your consciousness and the universe. What you perceive as separate and external is in fact part of a continuous conversation between self and cosmos. And yet this mechanism is not controlled by your ego. It is not a tool for manipulation, nor is it a guarantee of favorable outcomes. It is neutral, responsive, and precise. It reacts to intention, focus, and resonance with the world, not to desire or will alone. This is why so many overlook it. We look for signs, instructions, or proof, expecting the universe to conform to our limited understanding, rather than noticing the quiet alignment that occurs when perception, attention, and subtle intention meet in harmony. At this point, a subtle shift occurs in perception. You begin to sense that the ordinary way of living, reacting, analyzing, predicting, is only a fraction of what is possible. There is an undercurrent, an invisible architecture that shapes the flow of events. It is neither mystical nor magical in the naive sense. It is simply the hidden response of reality to consciousness itself. And once you sense it, you cannot fully return to the old way of seeing. You notice patterns that others miss, connections that are invisible to those who assume life is random, and a resonance in the world that responds quietly to the subtleties of your awareness. This is where the mind encounters both fascination and fear. You feel a vertigo of possibility, a quiet tension that something you relied upon is not as it seemed. Yet in this tension lies opportunity. The more you observe, the more you witness, the more you begin to understand that the universe is not merely a backdrop, it is participatory. The hidden mechanism is always present, always responsive, and it is quietly awaiting the recognition of your awareness. By opening your perception to this truth, you stand at the threshold of the concept that will ultimately end the reality you believed was fixed. You are no longer merely observing life. You are beginning to participate in the very patterns that structure it. And this is where curiosity becomes a tool, where attention becomes a guide, and where the next revelation, the one that cannot be unseen, begins to emerge from the shadows. Here is the concept that will irrevocably end the reality you thought was solid. There is no true separation between the observer and the observed, between self and the world, between cause and effect. It is not merely an idea to consider. It is an awakening to the mechanics of existence itself. The walls you rely on, the distinctions you assume, are constructs. They exist as mental tools for navigating life, yet beneath them lies a seamless continuum where perception and reality co-emerge, shaping one another in ways your mind has never been trained to recognize. To begin to understand this, imagine standing at the edge of a still lake at dawn. The surface appears smooth, reflecting trees and sky, as if the world exists apart from your gaze. Yet the moment you drop a pebble into the water, a ripple spreads, subtly shifting the reflection. Your presence, your action, changes what you thought was fixed. Now consider that every thought, emotion, and focus you emit into the world acts like that pebble, sending waves through the fabric of reality. The effect is not metaphorical, it is participatory. Reality is not something that happens to you, it is something you are actively shaping in every instant, whether consciously or unconsciously. This is why the revelation is so profound and so disorienting. For a lifetime, you've been trained to believe that you are separate from life's unfolding, that the world is governed by impersonal laws, by chance, by forces beyond comprehension. Yet the truth is subtler and far more intimate. Your consciousness is not observing reality from the outside, it is interwoven with it. Every sensation, every perception, every subtle intention reverberates through the hidden architecture of existence. Think about moments of intuition, when you just know something without evidence. Think about those experiences when a fleeting thought coincides with an event you could never have predicted. These are not coincidences. They are glimpses of the underlying coherence between your awareness and the unfolding of reality. They hint at a system in which the distinction between self and world begins to dissolve. What you once considered separate, your mind, your body, the objects around you, is part of a continuum of energy and attention that constantly interacts, responds, and evolves. And here lies the terrifying beauty of the insight. Once you perceive this, you cannot unsee it. You recognize that the narrative you have relied upon, one in which life happens to you and you merely respond, is a partial, limited construct. Reality in its true form is responsive. It is alive in ways that are subtle, precise, and infinitely adaptive. Your choices, your focus, your attention, these are not minor elements, they are integral forces that participate in shaping the unfolding of existence. Yet this is not about control, and it is not about mastery in the conventional sense. It is about awareness and participation. The universe is neutral. It is neither benevolent nor malevolent. It reflects, responds, and aligns according to patterns that are subtle, yet tangible for those willing to observe. To awaken to this truth is not to bend the world to your will. It is to witness its hidden rhythms and to step into them consciously, to become a co-creator rather than a passive observer. Consider life's most transformative moments. The feeling of awe when standing before a vast landscape, the sudden insight that resolves a long-standing confusion, the inexplicable synchronicities that seem to guide you, they are all expressions of this participatory reality. They are proof, glimpses of the mechanism that quietly responds to consciousness itself. In these moments, the illusion of separation dissolves, and you experience, however briefly, the truth that everything you perceive is connected to you and through you. The implications are staggering. If the self and reality are intertwined, then what you think, what you feel, and what you focus on does not merely remain internal. It manifests in subtle, cascading ways in the world. Choices that seem insignificant carry unseen consequences. Thoughts that appear fleeting shape currents of experience. Awareness becomes a sacred instrument, a tool that, once understood, changes the entire dynamic of existence. And yet, most people remain blind to this. They move through life as if reality were a fixed stage, failing to notice the quiet currents of cause and response that shape their experience. But those who awaken see differently. They notice the echo of attention in events, the alignment of perception and manifestation, the intimate dance between consciousness and the world. They begin to sense that reality is not static, that time is not fixed, and that identity is far more fluid than they ever imagined. At this point, comprehension alone is insufficient. You do not merely think about this truth, you experience it. You notice the subtle ways your attention shifts outcomes, how stillness alters perception, how intention resonates across dimensions of reality you cannot fully measure. The realization is liberating, terrifying, and utterly transformative. You are no longer a passive observer. You are entwined with the unfolding of life itself. This is the concept that ends reality as you have known it. It reveals that what you call life is not a linear sequence of events happening outside you. Life is a participatory, responsive field where consciousness and existence co-create continuously. Once you recognize this, there is no return to the old perception. You will never again see the world as separate, static, or predictable. You will forever perceive the subtle, intimate resonance that shapes every experience. And so the truth settles in. Reality is not external. It is co-emergent, alive with your awareness, and profoundly intimate. The insight does not merely change your understanding, it changes your relationship with everything you perceive. You cannot unsee this. Once witnessed, it transforms the way you move, think, and exist in the world. You are now both observer and participant, both mind and the field it perceives. The journey has reached the threshold of absolute awakening, and it is here that the next step begins, translating this insight into lived experience. You may be wondering how all of this applies to you in your daily life, in the quiet corners of your mind, in the spaces between work, responsibilities, and fleeting moments of rest. It is easy to hear about the hidden mechanism of reality, to sense the participatory nature of consciousness, and feel both fascinated and overwhelmed. Yet the truth is, you already live within it every day. You simply have not yet recognized it. Think of the moments when you felt completely present, when time seemed to stretch or compress, when the world felt alive in a way you could not articulate. Perhaps it was watching the sun sink below the horizon, the sky igniting with colors that defy description. Perhaps it was listening to music that made your chest ache, a melody that seemed to touch something beyond the surface of yourself. Perhaps it was laughter, shared with someone who understood you in a way that words could never capture. In those moments, you were not merely observing, you were participating. Your awareness was a conduit, an active component in the unfolding of experience. Even the moments of discomfort, the silent agonies of loneliness or doubt, carry the same intimate connection. The ache in your heart, the restless thoughts that follow you through the night, the questions that have no answers, they are all indicators of a deeper consciousness at work, an intelligence within you that is attuned to the patterns and rhythms of life itself. Pain and unease are not disruptions to the mechanism, they are feedback. They are signals that the field of reality is responding to the subtleties of your attention and focus, calling you to notice, to reflect, and to awaken. Perhaps you have felt disoriented in your life, moments when familiar routines no longer provide comfort, when relationships feel strained or hollow, when ambitions seem meaningless. That disorientation is the first stirring of awareness. It is the quiet nudge of reality saying, look closer, see the patterns, recognize your role in shaping what you experience. It is not a call to despair, it is an invitation. The hidden structure of life is whispering to you, and your discomfort is proof that your consciousness is ready to perceive what has always been there. Consider the subtle synchronicities that have appeared in your life. You think of someone, and they call. You prepare for a challenge, and an unexpected opportunity appears. You hesitate, and life seems to wait. These moments are not random, they are fingerprints of the hidden mechanism at work. Your mind has already been in dialogue with reality, often without your awareness. The more you notice, the more you realize that you are not simply moving through life, you are entangled in it, influencing it, resonating with it, co-creating it in ways subtle yet profound. This realization is deeply personal because it touches the core of your being. You are not an isolated entity, drifting through a neutral world. You are a living node in a responsive field. Your thoughts, your emotions, your presence, they all matter. The feeling of insignificance, the fear that you are powerless, begins to dissolve when you recognize that your awareness is not a passenger in the universe, but a participant. You are inseparable from the dance of existence. And yet, this understanding is not about vanity, ego, or control. It is about intimacy. It is about feeling the profound connection between your consciousness and the world around you. It is about recognizing that even the smallest gestures, the quietest thoughts, the subtlest attention, reverberate through reality in ways you cannot fully measure. When you look at someone and truly see them, when you extend kindness without expectation, when you listen without judgment, you are engaging with the hidden machinery of existence. You are an active, vibrant participant in a world that is far richer and more responsive than you have allowed yourself to believe. Think of it this way. Every relationship, every challenge, every fleeting moment of wonder is a mirror. Life reflects back to you not just your choices, but the resonance of your awareness. And as you begin to see yourself in this light, you begin to feel seen by reality itself. You are recognized, acknowledged, and included in the unfolding patterns that shape existence. This is the intimacy at the heart of awakening. It is the sense that the universe is not distant or indifferent, but intimately connected to you, responding to the quiet currents of your mind and heart. You are not alone. You have never been alone. Even in moments of despair, even in moments when the world seems indifferent, the field of existence is alive with your presence. It bends, aligns, and resonates with the patterns of your consciousness. And as you feel this, a subtle shift occurs. You begin to trust the invisible dialogue. You begin to notice the hidden cues, the signs, the whispers of possibility that have always been around you. You realize that your awareness is precious, your attention powerful, and your role in the world far more significant than the ego could have imagined. This connection, this deep, intimate recognition, is what transforms metaphysical insight into lived experience. It is where knowledge becomes experience, and where participation becomes awakening. You are no longer simply watching life unfold. You are woven into it, you are part of its rhythm, its intelligence, its beauty. And in this realization, the fear that once accompanied the collapse of old assumptions gives way to wonder, trust, and profound awe. Now that you have glimpsed the hidden nature of reality and felt your intimate connection to it, the question arises, what do you do with this knowledge? How do you step fully into this awareness without being overwhelmed, without being paralyzed by the immensity of the truth? The path is not about acquiring power in the conventional sense, nor is it about controlling outcomes. It is about participation, observation, and conscious alignment. The deliberate, mindful engagement with the currents of existence that are always present, waiting for recognition. Begin with attention. Notice where your focus flows, where your energy lingers. Most people are unaware of the subtle ways they scatter their consciousness, chasing distractions, replaying anxieties, measuring outcomes. But what if you paused, not in the sense of stopping action, but in the sense of becoming aware? Observe your thoughts and emotions as they arise, as if watching clouds drifting across an infinite sky. Do not judge them, do not resist them, simply notice. This is the first act of awakening, recognizing that consciousness is not a passive container for life, but an active instrument that shapes experience. Next, cultivate presence. Presence is not merely being in the moment, it is being aware of the full depth of your participation in it. When you walk, notice the sensations in your body, the rhythm of your breath, the subtle movement of energy within. When you speak, observe the weight of your words, the resonance of intention, the way attention subtly shifts in those who hear you. Presence is an acknowledgement of your co-creative role, a conscious participation in the unfolding reality that surrounds you. Then embrace stillness, not as emptiness, but as receptivity. Stillness allows you to sense the hidden currents, the invisible alignments that operate beneath the surface of perception. In quiet moments, subtle insights begin to emerge, a thought that seems to guide action, a feeling that shapes perception, a pattern that reveals itself only when the mind softens and the ego steps aside. In stillness, you realize that you are not separate from the flow of life. You are a node in its network, a resonance in its field, an awareness that participates in its creation. Alongside attention, presence, and stillness, practice deliberate observation of intention. Notice how subtle shifts in thought and focus can ripple outward. Perhaps you approach a task with curiosity rather than obligation. Perhaps you extend kindness without expectation. Perhaps you release the need to predict outcomes and instead trust the responsiveness of the universe. In each moment, your awareness becomes a tool, a channel through which life expresses itself with greater harmony and coherence. Yet, this is not about perfection. The mind will resist, ego will complain, and distractions will emerge. That is natural. Awakening is not a destination but a practice. It is the ongoing engagement with consciousness as it shapes reality, the repeated return to observation, presence, and stillness, the continual recognition of your intimate connection to existence. The small, consistent acts of awareness accumulate, revealing the hidden patterns and subtle alignments that have always been present. Finally, recognize that this is a deeply personal journey. No one can awaken for you. You cannot outsource perception or delegate attention. But the beauty of it is that it is accessible at every moment. Each breath, each glance, each thought carries the potential to tune your awareness into the hidden machinery of life. The practice is simple, yet infinitely profound. Notice, participate, align, observe. With time, the invisible threads of causation and resonance begin to become tangible. The hidden dialogue between self and world, once imperceptible, becomes a lived experience, subtle yet undeniable. This is the invitation. Do not merely think about reality. Step into it. Feel the currents. Observe the interplay between your consciousness and the world. Recognize that your awareness is a sacred instrument, that your participation is both subtle and essential, and that life is a continuous unfolding in which you are inseparably entwined. You are not separate. You are not passive. You are both witness and participant, and in this recognition lies the true awakening. As you practice these steps, the world begins to respond. Subtle alignments become noticeable, patterns emerge, insights arise with clarity. The ordinary becomes extraordinary, and the hidden forces that shape reality begin to reveal themselves to you. This is the practical, mystical application of the insight you have glimpsed. Attention becomes creation, observation becomes participation, presence becomes awakening. Step lightly, but step fully. Recognize your role, acknowledge the field, and engage with consciousness not as a spectator, but as a living, co-creative force. This is how you awaken, not by escaping the world, but by becoming aware of your intimate, inseparable participation in it. And now, having traversed this journey of perception, awareness, and awakening, you arrive at the edge of understanding, standing before a horizon that has always been there, yet invisible until this moment. The world you once assumed to be solid, predictable, and separate has dissolved into subtle currents, intricate alignments, and resonances that respond to your consciousness. You have glimpsed the hidden mechanism that shapes reality and recognized the intimate entanglement of observer and observed. You have seen that life is not something that happens to you, but something that unfolds with you, through you, and because of you. There is a quiet wonder in this revelation, a profound awe that cannot be fully captured in words. It is the awareness that each breath, each thought, each attention carries weight beyond measure. Even the smallest moment holds infinite possibility. Every encounter, every sensation, every fleeting perception is both ordinary and extraordinary, simultaneously familiar and astonishing. You realize that life has never been accidental, never been passive. It has always been alive, responsive, and intimate, awaiting the recognition of your awareness. And yet this understanding does not announce itself with fanfare. It arrives quietly, in the spaces between thoughts, in the stillness of observation, in the subtle resonance of intuition. It is felt in the pause of the heart before a decision, in the inexplicable clarity of insight that appears without warning, in the moments when time itself seems to bend, stretch, or collapse around you. These are the moments when the hidden truth becomes tangible. The world and self are not separate. Reality is co-created, and the observer is inseparable from the observed. The beauty of this realization is that it transforms the ordinary into the sacred. A conversation, a glance, a gesture, simple, everyday events become portals into deeper understanding. You begin to notice the invisible threads connecting moments, people, and choices, sensing the quiet alignments that guide life without coercion. Every interaction becomes meaningful, every experience becomes layered with significance, and even silence holds resonance. Life, once perceived as fixed or predictable, becomes a living, breathing continuum, a flowing symphony of consciousness, attention, and response. And now, having witnessed this, you cannot return to the old perception. The world may appear the same to others, but for you, it is transformed. Every step, every action, every thought carries subtle gravity. You recognize your presence not as incidental, but as participatory, as integral to the unfolding of reality. You are both the observer and the field observed. You are both the question and the answer. You are at once contained and infinite, finite and eternal, separate yet inseparable from the cosmic rhythm of existence. In this awareness, fear gives way to awe. Certainty gives way to wonder. The need for control softens, replaced by trust in the responsiveness of life itself. You understand that reality does not require domination or mastery. It requires attention, presence, and conscious engagement. The universe does not wait for your permission to unfold. It has always been unfolding with you. And now, for the first time, you move within it consciously, not as a passenger, but as a participant, fully aware of the depths, subtleties, and intricacies of existence. And so, you carry this knowledge forward, silently, intimately, and profoundly. You move through life differently, not louder, not grander, not forceful, but with the quiet recognition of your role in the fabric of reality. The hidden mechanisms continue their work, responding to your awareness in ways you can feel, but never fully measure. The veil between self and world is thinner, transparent, responsive. Life is no longer a sequence of isolated events. It is a living dialogue, and you are a participant whose presence is essential, whose attention matters, whose consciousness resonates. The horizon stretches infinitely, both before you and within you. There is no end to this awareness, no final destination, only continuous unfolding, continuous participation, continuous awakening. You have witnessed the concept that ends reality as it was known to you. But in its ending, you have found a beginning far more extraordinary. A reality where perception and creation, self and world, thought and being are intertwined, alive and inseparable. And now, you move forward quietly, aware of the infinite possibilities that exist within each moment. attuned to the hidden currents that have always been guiding, shaping, and responding. Life is no longer a stage on which you act. It is a living, breathing field in which you are fully present, fully awake, fully participating. You carry this awareness into every step, every breath, every thought. And in doing so, you awaken not only to the hidden reality, but to the infinite mystery and beauty of your own being. The world continues, as it always has, yet you see it differently. And in that seeing, everything has changed.